This is, I think like the last 9 minutes of the story. It's not gonna be all that long, right? Pardon me. Um, it's really early in the morning. I usually have smoker's cough in the morning. Sorry, guys. So I already am loading up part one, but I haven't covered part two yet, because I got tired. I went to sleep. I've been having a rough couple of days. Um, Going through a breakup. And I have a convention I have to deal with this weekend where I generally get followed around by a stalker while I'm there. So it's been a hard week. Also been in a pain cycle where my leg has been in worse shape than it goes up and down. Usually during, like, okay, when they talk to you about the pain scale, right? 10 being you need to go to the ER, one being you're perfectly fine, you have no pain whatsoever. Um, this week I've been roughly around a 7. My muscles are all knotted up because the pain spiked this week. So I've been trying to do these types of videos and massage my leg while I'm doing it to help alleviate what's happening in my leg. But I digress. Let's get back to the story.
Last legs. According to friends, they were just trying to get through the month of May together and were fighting to save the relationship, but neither would see June.
Mm, God
On the
damn.
night of May 27th, 1998, Bryn had plans to meet up with a friend for dinner at Buca di Beppo. She was in high spirits that night and was nothing if not lovely to everyone she encountered. Her friend, Christine Zander, stated that she was in good spirits and nursed 2 drinks that night. At one point, Zander went to the bathroom.
This, by the way, this footage right here is probably why he's got a copyright claim on his video. I don't even know that this footage was necessary, but there it is.
To freshen up, and Bryn took the opportunity to make a call at the payphone in the restaurant. Who she called and what they spoke about is still unknown, but multiple witnesses said her tone seemed to be slightly upset. When she got back to the table, though, she was once again in high spirits. After they
Mm-hmm.
finished dinner, Bryn didn't want to go home. Instead, she went over to the home of Ron Douglas, a former boyfriend who she kept in touch with. Douglas and her would do cocaine with each other on occasion, much to Phil's chagrin. When Bryn
Mm-hmm.
came over, she drank a couple of beers with Ron and spoke to him about her marital issues. She complained about Phil and how detached emotionally he had been, talked about how he had forbidden her from doing any more coke, and seemed dejected. After a couple hours, Ron told her it would be best if she went back home to the kids, to which Bryn seemed annoyed. Finally, she left and returned home. At no point
Yeah, partners don't like it when they're told, hey, what you're doing is not morally correct. You can't be doing drugs, girlfriend. Not like that. Like, I mean, they had a child together, right? They have a child together. And he has children from a previous marriage as well. So there's kids involved in this scenario. But yeah, it's amazing how when you point out that something is morally incorrect, that it's not the way to proceed, that your partner will just fly the fuck off the handle and be like, "What are you talking about? Don't try and control me," right? Don't try and control me. Doing cocaine with an ex-boyfriend while she's married to Phil Hartman. How do you do that? How do you do that? You know? I mean, the scenario I'm dealing with right now is like, um, uh, my very soon-to-be ex-boyfriend wants to take another woman to a very expensive fundraiser. That's a date. That's a fucking date. Sorry, but that's a date, and I'm out. I'm like, look, I'm a monogamous person. Fuck that bullshit. I'm out.
Throughout the night, did anyone witness Bryn doing cocaine, and no one reported that she seemed incredibly high or drunk. However, as her toxicology report would later show, she had started using coke again, and was incredibly high the entire night. It was found out later that she had relapsed earlier that week, and had been able to keep it mostly under wraps from those she knew. The following is a summation of events that occurred based on the evidence. When
Mm,
Bryn arrived home, her and Phil got into a heated argument. Although it's impossible to know what about, most speculate that Phil saw she was high, and he told
probably.
her he planned to follow through on his threat of leaving with the kids.
Mm,
As the fight began to escalate, Phil did what he had always done and removed himself from the situation, choosing to go to sleep rather than continue to fight with her. This left Bryn to toil in her own thoughts.
oh
After he was
God.
asleep, Bryn retrieved a 38 caliber handgun she had bought herself for protection and walked into their bedroom where Phil lay asleep. She then shot him 3 times, once between the eyes, once in the throat, and once in the chest. He died instantly in his sleep, without real.
That's, I mean, consider the spots that she hit him to. That's really personal. And, I think everybody's like, they go on to say that, like, everybody's like, oh, well, she was really coked out. She didn't know what she was doing. I'm sorry. Those are really personal spots on the body I mean, this is her husband. She shot him between the eyes, in the neck, and in the chest. That is, um, that's a really, I mean, she wanted him dead. There's no mistaking that. The only thing she could have done worse was like choke him too. You know? I mean, oh my God. It's so sad. The Phil Hartman story is so sad, you guys.
Realizing what was going on. His son Sean woke up hearing gunshots, but having never heard them before, he believed them to be the sound of doors slamming. After killing her husband, Bryn walked about the house, snorting cocaine and drinking. After about an hour or so, she called Ron at 3:25 a.m. and told him that when she came home, she found a note from Phil that read simply, "I'm going out for the night, I'll be back." She asked Ron if she could come back and hang out because she didn't want to be home alone.
See, this is another reason that you can't say that she was just coked out and that she didn't know what she was doing, because she actually went through the process of writing a fucking letter, like coming up with this entire excuse of, oh, he's just gone now. He decided to leave. She, I mean, no, you can't blame the drugs on this one. I know they want to blame the drugs on this one, but you can't. You cannot blame the drugs on this one.
To which he denied, telling her that she should stay home with her kids. 20 minutes later, Bryn arrived at Ron's house, noticeably intoxicated. She told Ron that she thinks she killed Phil, but doesn't know for sure if she did. Ron, used to her theatrics when she was drunk, didn't believe her. When she showed him the gun she stated she used, he looked it over and thought there was no ammunition missing, and told her as much. She began to get sick from the combination of cocaine and alcohol, and
Mm.
asked him to call home, just to see if Phil would pick up. He did, and grew a bit more concerned when they received no answer. Ron kept Bryn awake for the next 2 hours, worried that if she fell asleep, she would die of an overdose. When she sobered up, the two made their way back to the home, as Bryn continued to state that she had killed Phil. While driving to the home,
Mm.
Bryn called another friend, Judy, and told her that she killed Phil and her life was over. Judy likewise thought she was high and not thinking straight, but Bryn's conviction led her to going over to the Hartman household at 6 a.m. When Ron and Bryn entered the home, they made their way to the master bedroom. In it lay Phil, deceased on the bed, with multiple bullet wounds visible. Ron was shocked. Had he known that Bryn was serious, he would have gotten medical attention earlier, and felt entirely unsure of how to proceed. According to him, Everything seemed like it was moving in slow motion. He didn't know what to do or what was going on, and vaguely heard Bryn in the other room, making another phone call, this time to another friend,
Oh.
telling them she had killed Phil. After shaking off the shock of seeing
Which one of them's gonna call the fucking police? Come on. Like, you gotta clean. I mean, you gotta come clean. Fucking come clean, right? You have to get the coroner in there. I mean, um, there's children in the building. This is so sad, you guys. It's so sad.
Phil's dead body, Ron grabbed the nearest phone and called 911. He told them that there had been a shooting and that one person had died. While on the phone with the police,
Mm.
Bryn made her way to the bedroom with Phil, locking herself inside so no one could get to her. She called her sister and told her what she had done and asked her to take care of the kids for her before hanging up. The police arrived on the scene and removed everyone from the home, including Sean and Burgeon, who had been sleeping. Once the police were at the master bedroom, they called in to Bryn, asking for her to open the door for them. Sobbing, Bryn got in bed next to Phil. It was there where she killed herself, the same way she had killed her husband.
Oh, that's what happened. I see. Okay. I didn't know.
The weeks that followed the
Okay.
tragic death of Phil Hartman were incredibly difficult for those who loved him. Not only had he been murdered by the person who he loves, but the media had taken the story and run with it. Every day, new tabloids would speculate on why Bryn took his life. Some papers stated that he was gay and put a homophobic spin on his entire life. Others tried to find, quote, the other woman, writing that he had cheated on his wife for years and this is the only reason why she opted to kill him. Many of the initial reports wrote about Phil as if he had a dark, secret double life and tried to paint him in a negative light, to the dismay of everyone who knew him. The Hartmans and their friends spoke about how they would move forward from this tragedy the morning they were informed about Phil's passing, and one thing they wanted to make sure of was that they didn't give the media what they wanted. In the weeks that followed, they isolated themselves completely, refusing to go outside or interact with any strangers. Reporters tried to infiltrate their lives and get the inside scoop, but the family stayed tightly knit. Phil's peers at SNL and those who he worked with on various other projects came forward to honor his life and death with multiple memorial services. Paul Rubens, who had had a falling out with Phil after he left Pee-wee's Playhouse, remarked that he regretted not reconnecting with his friend, and that would be one of the biggest mistakes in his life. Later on, when it was relayed to John Lovitz that it had been Andy Dick who supplied the cocaine Bryn was on the night she killed Phil, Lovitz bashed Dick's head into a bar and told him it was his fault that his friend had died. As for Bryn, her brother Greg remained steadfast that his sister was a deeply troubled and misunderstood person who was not in full control of her mental faculties when she killed Phil and then herself. Despite her demons, he believed her to be a great mother who only wanted the best for her children and always put them before everyone else. Greg blamed her use of the antidepressant Zoloft and said that she had been erroneously prescribed the medication so her doctor could get a kickback. He went on to claim that she was not depressed when she had been prescribed the drug, and it was never communicated to her that combining Zoloft and alcohol would increase the negative side effects. Greg went on to sue the maker.
I don't believe that for a second. Every time I get prescribed anything, they always tell me whether or not they it's almost all of them, right? Like, it's almost every drug that gets prescribed. Anti-inflammatories. They don't even do painkillers all that much anymore, but they do. I've never had an antidepressant, but pretty much every drug you get prescribed, they tell you not to drink alcohol. This might impair your ability to operate a motor vehicle, shit like that. I find it impossible that she was not advised. They're being very generous that she was that uneducated about how to handle her drugs. Especially she wasn't just doing Zoloft and alcohol, she was also doing cocaine, right? But on top of it, the ex-boyfriend is saying that he sobered her up before they went back to the house, and she, I guess, killed herself. I don't think she could have. Okay, I know you're saying that she killed herself in the same way, but there's no way she could have killed, like, shot herself through the head, through the neck, and through the chest. You just, like, fucking can't do that, right? So it's a bullet in one of those areas, but not all three. There's no way that you can fucking accomplish that on your own, right? And he was already dead and nobody else was in the room. Um, so that's inaccurate. That can't possibly be true. Um, what's interesting about the way this story was covered, though, is there's a whole lot of, well, Phil didn't know how to deal with his emotions. Does that really matter? Does that matter? I mean, you don't kill somebody simply because they're distant and, or, you don't like that they're telling you not to be a druggie, right? Like, don't fucking do that. These death stories are always so weird to me because there's all this, like, backstory of, I don't know, well, Phil was distant, so what? So what? He was distant.
Of Zoloft, and the case was settled in 1999, with Pfizer paying Hartman's children a cash settlement. However,
Oh,
one of the
wow.
doctors who looked over the case stated that it is unlikely that Greg would have won, given Bryn's erratic behavior prior to her being prescribed the drug. He posited that the case was settled to decrease any negative publicity surrounding their product. John
Wow.
Hartman, Phil's brother, stated that after he received the toxicology report from the coroner and was informed that due to the high levels of alcohol, cocaine, and Zoloft in her system, it was likely that she had no idea what was going on, he immediately forgave her, but
Oh,
others
wow.
have not been so kind. Phil Hartman was a wonderful man. Though deeply complicated, he worked hard to make the lives of everyone around him better, and he sought to make the world a happier place. His loss is still felt today and likely will always be felt. Thank you for watching this episode of Dreading. If you like this video, please hit the like button and consider subscribing. If you are able, please consider supporting.
Like I said, I think it's unlikely that she didn't know what she was doing. If she went to the lengths of of making up a story to try and explain his disappearance, she was already trying to go through, like, the premeditation of it. Um, she basically just got pissed off that he didn't want her to do coke, right? And so she killed him. And then she tried to make up a story about him leaving. And that, I mean, that to me indicates premeditation. She would have been locked up for this. Was justice served, you guys? If she got to go out on her own terms? Was justice served? I think justice would have been served if she had been locked up and forced to sober up and spend the rest of her life in jail.